Before you decide, this message is just another discussion about love. I want you to ask yourself one question. Have you ever felt that someone was meant to be in your life, yet no matter how much you wanted them close, circumstances kept pulling you apart? What if I told you that the distance between two people is not always a sign that the connection is ending? What if the separation you feared was actually preparing both hearts for a reunion neither of you could have experienced any sooner? Most people believe love fails because of time, distance, or silence. But what if those very obstacles are not destroying the connection, they are transforming it? What if, at this very moment, while you are questioning everything, the person you have been waiting for is quietly becoming the version of themselves that can finally walk back into your life? Today's message is not about fantasy or empty promises. It is about the hidden changes that take place beneath the surface, where fear slowly becomes courage, confusion becomes clarity, and emotional distance begins to disappear. Stay with me until the very end, because what you are about to hear may completely change the way you understand separation, waiting, and the extraordinary journey that leads two souls back to the place they have always belonged, home. The end of emotional distance is rarely announced by dramatic events. It begins quietly, almost invisibly, within the deepest layers of the human mind. Most people assume that distance is measured by geography, believing that two people are separated only because they live in different places or circumstances keep them apart. Yet physical space is often the smallest obstacle between two hearts. The greatest separation exists when fear replaces trust, when misunderstandings are left unresolved, and when old emotional wounds become stronger than the desire to connect. Two people can stand beside each other every day and still feel completely alone, while others can be thousands of miles apart and remain deeply connected through an invisible emotional bond that refuses to disappear. This reveals that true distance is created within the mind long before it appears in the outer world. When a meaningful connection enters a period of separation, it often activates the hidden parts of the personality. Doubts begin to surface, insecurities become louder, and past disappointments return to demand attention. Memories of rejection, abandonment, or heartbreak influence the way every message is interpreted and every silence is understood. Instead of seeing the present clearly, people begin reacting to experiences from the past. The mind attempts to protect itself from future pain by expecting the worst, even when there is no evidence that the relationship has truly been lost. Emotional distance grows because fear quietly reshapes perception. The more fear controls the inner world, the more disconnected two people begin to feel, regardless of how much they still care for one another. Yet separation has another purpose that is often overlooked. It creates space for self-discovery. Without constant reassurance from another person, individuals are forced to confront themselves. They begin questioning their patterns, recognizing emotional habits that no longer serve them, and understanding why certain fears have followed them throughout life. What once seemed like an unbearable period of waiting slowly becomes an opportunity for inner transformation. The silence that initially felt empty starts revealing lessons that could never have been learned through constant closeness. Patience develops where anxiety once existed, emotional resilience grows where dependence once ruled, and clarity begins replacing confusion. These changes happen gradually, often without immediate awareness, but they reshape the foundation upon which future relationships are built. As this inner transformation continues, the emotional barriers that once created separation begin to weaken, defensive reactions soften, resentment loses its grip, and the need to control every outcome slowly disappears. Instead of acting from insecurity, a person begins responding from understanding. They no longer seek love as a way to complete themselves, but as something they are prepared to share. This shift changes the quality of every future interaction because genuine connection can only thrive where emotional freedom exists. When both individuals experience this kind of growth, the distance that once seemed permanent begins dissolving naturally. What looked like an impossible separation is revealed as a temporary season that prepared two people to meet again with greater maturity, deeper compassion, and a stronger understanding of themselves and each other. Inner transformation before union is one of the most important yet least understood aspects of any meaningful connection. Many people believe that love begins the moment two individuals finally come together, but lasting relationships are often shaped long before that first embrace or heartfelt conversation. Real preparation happens in silence, away from the attention of others, where the deepest changes take place within the mind and heart. Every challenge, disappointment, and unexpected delay becomes an invitation to grow into a person who can not only receive love, but also sustain it. Without this inner development, even the strongest attraction can become fragile, because unresolved fears and emotional wounds eventually influence every interaction. When people carry unhealed pain into a relationship, they often expect the other person to repair what was broken long before they arrived. Old betrayals create suspicion where trust should exist. Past rejection makes ordinary silence feel like abandonment. Previous disappointments cause simple misunderstandings to appear as signs that everything is falling apart. These reactions are rarely caused by the present moment alone. Instead, they are echoes of experiences that have never been fully understood or released. The mind naturally searches for familiar patterns, even when those patterns create unnecessary suffering. As a result, people sometimes defend themselves against dangers that no longer exist, unknowingly pushing away the very connection they desire. Periods of separation, uncertainty, or waiting often become opportunities for this hidden work to unfold. Without constant distractions, individuals begin noticing the beliefs that have quietly directed their choices for years. They recognize how fear has influenced their decisions, how insecurity has shaped their expectations, and how emotional habits have repeated themselves in different relationships. This awareness does not arrive all at once. It develops gradually through reflection, experience, and honest self-examination. Each realization removes another layer of confusion, allowing a clearer understanding of both oneself and the kind of relationship that truly brings peace rather than emotional exhaustion. As this transformation continues, priorities naturally begin to change. The desire to control every outcome becomes weaker, replaced by greater patience and emotional balance. Instead of seeking constant reassurance, a person learns to develop confidence from within. Instead of expecting perfection from another individual, they begin appreciating honesty, consistency, and mutual respect. This shift creates healthier expectations because love is no longer viewed as an escape from loneliness, but as a meaningful partnership between two emotionally responsible individuals. The connection becomes less about filling empty spaces and more about sharing the fullness that both people have developed independently. This inner growth also changes the way challenges are handled. Difficult conversations no longer feel like threats, and disagreements are no longer interpreted as proof that love has failed. Emotional maturity encourages listening before reacting, understanding before judging, and patience before making irreversible decisions. The relationship gains stability because both individuals are less controlled by impulsive emotions and more guided by thoughtful awareness. Trust becomes easier to build because it rests on self-understanding rather than constant external validation. In this way, inner transformation quietly prepares two people for a union that is not based solely on attraction or emotion, but on wisdom, resilience, and the ability to grow together through every season of life. Joy is often misunderstood as a simple emotion that appears only when life unfolds exactly as expected. In reality, genuine happiness is something much deeper. It reflects a state of inner harmony where a person no longer feels trapped by fear, regret, or constant uncertainty. When someone reaches this place, Their thoughts become clearer, their emotions become more balanced, and their actions begin to reflect confidence rather than hesitation. This kind of happiness is not dependent on perfect circumstances. It grows from an inner realization that peace is possible even after disappointment, and that the future can be approached with hope instead of anxiety. Because of this, true joy becomes a powerful sign that a person is emotionally prepared for a meaningful connection. Many people search for love, believing it will create happiness, but lasting relationships are rarely built upon emotional emptiness. When someone expects another person to become the source of all their peace, they unknowingly place an impossible responsibility upon the relationship. Every disagreement feels threatening, every delay creates fear, and every misunderstanding becomes evidence that love is disappearing. This happens because happiness has been placed entirely in someone else's hands. Genuine emotional readiness begins when a person learns to rediscover peace within themselves. As they develop self-understanding and emotional stability, they stop looking at love as something that rescues them and begin seeing it as something they can freely share. This transformation changes the entire foundation of a relationship. Happiness also influences the way people perceive the world around them. A mind overwhelmed by fear tends to notice only obstacles, unanswered questions, and imagined dangers. Small moments of silence become reasons for doubt, while ordinary challenges appear much larger than they truly are. In contrast, a peaceful and joyful mind naturally recognizes possibilities instead of limitations. It approaches uncertainty with patience rather than panic, and views change as an opportunity for growth instead of a threat. This shift in perception allows a person to make wiser decisions because they are no longer reacting from emotional survival, but from thoughtful awareness. Their choices become calmer, more intentional, and more aligned with what truly matters. When someone experiences this kind of inner happiness, it quietly influences the people around them. Their conversations become more genuine because they are no longer driven by the need for approval. Their presence feels comforting because they are not constantly seeking reassurance. They listen more carefully, express themselves more honestly, and respond with greater compassion during difficult moments. Emotional stability creates an atmosphere where trust can grow naturally. Others feel safe enough to lower their own defenses, allowing deeper understanding and stronger bonds to develop without force or manipulation. Joy becomes something that is shared rather than demanded, creating relationships that feel balanced instead of emotionally exhausting. This inner state also encourages movement toward what truly brings fulfillment. Fear often keeps people standing still, convincing them that avoiding risk is safer than pursuing what their heart genuinely desires. Happiness weakens this fear by reminding them that life is meant to be experienced rather than endlessly analyzed. As confidence replaces hesitation, they become more willing to express their feelings, reconnect after periods of distance, and embrace opportunities they once ignored. Their actions begin reflecting emotional clarity instead of uncertainty, allowing relationships to develop through openness, trust, and the quiet confidence that meaningful love grows most naturally in hearts that have already discovered peace within themselves. The journey home is often imagined as a physical return, a moment when two people finally stand in the same place after being separated by distance, time, or circumstance. Yet the deepest meaning of coming home reaches far beyond geography. A person can travel across countries and still feel emotionally lost, while another may remain in the same city yet experience the profound feeling of finally arriving where they truly belong. Home is not defined by walls, streets, or familiar surroundings. It is defined by the emotional experience of being accepted without the need to hide, pretend, or constantly defend oneself. It is the place where the heart becomes quiet because it no longer feels the pressure to prove its worth. Throughout life, people build invisible masks to protect themselves from disappointment. They learn to appear stronger than they feel, happier than they are, and more confident than they truly believe themselves to be. These masks often develop after painful experiences, such as rejection, betrayal, or emotional neglect. While they may provide temporary protection, they also create distance between a person's true self and the world around them. Over time, wearing these emotional disguises becomes exhausting. Conversations lose authenticity, relationships become guarded, and genuine vulnerability begins to feel dangerous. The longing to come home is, in many ways, the longing to finally remove these masks without fearing judgment or abandonment. This inner return begins long before any physical reunion takes place. A person gradually recognizes that lasting peace cannot be found by constantly seeking approval from others. They begin releasing unrealistic expectations, forgiving parts of their own past, and accepting both their strengths and imperfections with greater compassion. As self-acceptance grows, the need to impress or control others slowly fades. Emotional energy that was once spent maintaining appearances becomes available for honesty, kindness, and meaningful connection. The journey home becomes an inward movement toward authenticity, where the individual no longer feels divided between who they truly are and who they believe they must pretend to be. When two people have experienced this kind of inner transformation, their connection naturally changes. Communication becomes more open because neither person feels compelled to hide their fears behind pride or silence. Trust grows more easily because honesty replaces emotional games. Instead of protecting themselves from imagined rejection, they begin allowing themselves to be fully seen, understanding that genuine closeness requires vulnerability rather than perfection. The relationship becomes a place where both individuals can express uncertainty, admit mistakes, and share dreams without fearing that these moments of openness will weaken the bond. Emotional safety becomes the foundation upon which lasting intimacy is built. In this sense, coming home represents the end of emotional wandering. It is the quiet realization that peace is found not by escaping life's difficulties but by discovering a connection where both people feel free to exist as their authentic selves. The distance that once separated them loses its power because the walls built by fear, insecurity, and self-protection have gradually fallen away. Their presence in each other's lives no longer feels uncertain or forced, but deeply familiar, as though every challenge they endured prepared them to recognize the rare comfort of being understood without explanation. Home is ultimately the place where the soul no longer searches for permission to be itself, because it has finally found a relationship where acceptance, trust, and emotional belonging exist naturally. Trusting the invisible process is one of the greatest challenges the human mind can face, because people naturally seek certainty through what they can see, hear, and immediately understand. When progress is visible, confidence comes easily. When answers arrive quickly, patience feels unnecessary. Yet the most meaningful transformations often unfold beneath the surface, beyond the reach of immediate observation. Just as seeds remain hidden beneath the soil long before they become visible flowers, the deepest emotional changes develop quietly within the mind and heart. Although nothing appears to be happening from the outside, important growth is taking place in silence. The absence of visible movement should never be mistaken for the absence of meaningful progress. One of the mind's strongest habits is to interpret delay as failure. When expected results do not arrive within a preferred timeline, doubt begins to replace hope. Questions arise about whether the effort was worthwhile, whether the connection was genuine, or whether the future will ever unfold as imagined. These thoughts often become louder with time, because uncertainty leaves space for fear to scatter. Instead of waiting with confidence, people begin imagining unfavorable outcomes that have not actually occurred. The imagination, when guided by anxiety rather than wisdom, often creates emotional suffering long before reality has revealed its true direction. Life, however, does not follow the impatient rhythm of human expectation. Every meaningful experience develops according to conditions that cannot always be controlled or predicted. Emotional healing, personal growth, and genuine understanding require time because they involve changing deeply rooted patterns that have existed for years. Old fears cannot disappear overnight, and lasting maturity cannot be forced by determination alone. Just as nature allows each season to complete its purpose before another begins, human transformation follows an inner rhythm that values readiness more than speed. Attempting to rush this process often leads to frustration because external timing cannot replace internal preparation. Periods of waiting frequently become opportunities for hidden development. While the conscious mind focuses on what appears absent, the deeper parts of the personality continue learning from every experience. Small moments of reflection accumulate into greater self-awareness. Repeated challenges gradually strengthen emotional resilience. Difficult conversations teach honesty, disappointments reveal unrealistic expectations, and unexpected changes encourage adaptability. These lessons rarely announce themselves in dramatic ways. Instead, they quietly reshape attitudes, beliefs, and emotional responses until one day a person realizes they no longer react as they once did. What seemed like empty time was actually a period of steady inner construction. Trusting this invisible process also requires releasing the illusion that every outcome can be controlled through constant effort. Many people believe that if they think harder, worry more, or repeatedly analyze every possibility, they will somehow guarantee the future they desire. In reality, excessive control often creates greater emotional tension. The mind becomes exhausted by endless prediction, leaving little room for clarity or peace. Genuine trust does not mean becoming passive or ignoring responsibility. It means recognizing that some aspects of life unfold according to forces beyond immediate understanding, and that wisdom often involves allowing those processes to mature naturally. Confidence grows not from having every answer, but from believing that meaningful growth continues even when its progress cannot yet be seen, and that what appears to be stillness may actually be the quiet preparation for profound and lasting change. Love finds its way naturally when it is allowed to grow without being controlled by fear, desperation, or the constant need to force outcomes. Many people believe that if they try hard enough, plan every conversation, or manipulate every situation, they can guarantee the relationship they desire. Yet, genuine connection rarely develops through pressure. It flourishes when two individuals become emotionally honest with themselves and with each other. Real love cannot be manufactured through persuasion or sustained by endless effort alone. It grows because both people choose to move toward each other freely, guided by understanding, trust, and mutual respect rather than obligation or fear. One of the greatest obstacles to this natural process is the desire to control what cannot be controlled. When uncertainty appears, the mind often responds by overthinking every detail. A delayed reply becomes a reason for panic. A brief misunderstanding feels like the beginning of the end, and ordinary silence is interpreted as rejection. These reactions create emotional tension that can overshadow the relationship itself. Instead of experiencing the connection as it truly exists, people begin interacting with their own fears and assumptions. They attempt to solve imagined problems before they have even become real, creating unnecessary distance through anxiety, rather than allowing the relationship to unfold with patience and clarity. A healthy connection is built upon freedom rather than emotional dependence. When both individuals develop confidence within themselves, they stop seeking constant validation from one another. They appreciate each other's presence without believing that happiness depends entirely on the other person's actions. This emotional balance creates space for trust to grow because neither person feels pressured to carry the entire weight of the other's emotional well-being. Love becomes an exchange instead of a rescue mission. Both individuals contribute understanding, kindness, and support while maintaining their own sense of identity and inner stability. As people mature emotionally, they begin recognizing that meaningful relationships are not maintained by perfection, but by consistency. Small acts of honesty, thoughtful communication, and genuine care become more valuable than dramatic promises or temporary displays of affection. Trust develops gradually through repeated experiences that demonstrate reliability and respect. Over time, these simple moments create a foundation strong enough to withstand misunderstandings and life's inevitable challenges. Love becomes less about intense emotion and more about the quiet confidence that both people are willing to grow together, even when circumstances become difficult. When emotional readiness exists on both sides, life often begins removing the barriers that once seemed impossible to overcome. Opportunities appear naturally, conversations happen at the right time, and decisions that once felt overwhelming become clear. Neither person needs to force the connection because both are moving toward the same destination with open hearts and greater self-awareness. The relationship no longer depends on chasing, convincing, or proving worth. Instead, it develops through mutual willingness, shared growth, and the quiet recognition that authentic love is strongest when it is chosen freely, nurtured patiently, and allowed to unfold according to its own natural rhythm. As we come to the end of this message, remember that the greatest journeys are not measured by the miles we travel, but by the transformation we experience within. Long distance is never only about physical separation. It is often a season of growth, healing, and preparation. Every moment of waiting has the potential to shape a stronger heart, a wiser mind, and a deeper understanding of what genuine love truly means. When fear is replaced with trust, when uncertainty gives way to inner peace, and when both souls have grown into the people they were always meant to become, the barriers that once seemed impossible begin to disappear naturally. If this message has spoken to your heart, let it remind you to remain patient with your own journey. Do not lose hope because of temporary silence or delayed answers. Some of life's most meaningful blessings arrive only after they have had enough time to mature. Continue becoming the best version of yourself. Trust the unseen process, and believe that what is truly meant for you will never lose its way. I sincerely hope this message has brought you comfort, clarity, and a renewed sense of hope. Thank you for spending your valuable time here and allowing these thoughts to be part of your journey. I wish you peace in your heart, strength in every challenge, wisdom in every decision, and happiness in every new beginning. May your path lead you toward love, understanding, and the feeling of finally coming home. Good luck, take care of yourself, and thank you for listening.